Hi, my name is Lisa Williams, and today I'll be taking you through the Knight Digital Media Center course on being effective on Twitter. Now today we're going to review the basics of Twitter messaging, including how to get your message across effectively on Twitter, find and engage the people who care about the issues that matter to you, and how to measure the impact of what you're doing. First, let's review the basics of Twitter messaging. An individual Twitter message, called a tweet, can contain links to web pages, photos, even location data, but it's got to be short. Each tweet has to be under 140 characters. Now that's part of Twitter's legacy as a mobile application. Initially, Twitter was aimed exclusively at users of mobile phones, and messages were sent using the SMS or Short Messaging Service Protocol, which has really strict character limits. Once you get beyond that, I think the most important thing to understand at first is how friending works on Twitter. On Facebook, friending is reciprocal. That is, if I'm a friend of yours on Facebook, you're a friend of mine. If you're on my friend list and you post something, generally I can see it unless you've made specific efforts to make that post private. On Twitter, friending is not reciprocal, which is why it's often referred to as following rather than friending. Just because you follow someone on Twitter and receive their updates doesn't mean that they follow you, nor do you have to follow everyone who signs up to receive your updates. However, unlike Facebook, nearly everything that you post on Twitter is public by default, which means that even people who don't follow you, in fact, even people who aren't signed into Twitter, can see your tweets. It's just that if they're not following you, they won't see those automatically when they sign into Twitter on the web or via an app on their mobile phone. There are a number of different kinds of messages on Twitter. The first is the basic tweet, one in which you just send plain text, links to a web page, a photo, location data, like a Foursquare check-in. The other major ways of using Twitter messaging are the @reply, the direct message, and the retweet. We'll look at each of those in turn. An @reply is a message directed at a specific Twitter user. You make one by beginning your message with the username of the person you want to message, preceded by the @ symbol. You can send an @reply to anybody with a Twitter username, even if they don't follow you, and even if you don't follow them. Remember that @replies, just like ordinary tweets not directed at some specific Twitter user, are public. Everybody can see what you're saying to that person. Now, direct messages, like @replies, are also directed at a specific person, but direct messages are private. Each direct message begins with the letter D, a space, followed by the Twitter username of the person you want to send a message to. Remember when we talked about how friending and following works on Twitter? Well, you can only send a direct message to someone who follows you. And only someone you follow can send you a direct message. It's one of the ways that Twitter cuts down on spam, since nobody can send you an unsolicited private message unless you've signed up to follow their tweets first. Now, direct messages are supposed to be private, but sometimes they're not. Celebrities, representatives of Fortune 500 companies, candidates for office, all of them have discovered this the hard way. This tweet, for example, leaked word of a visit by President Obama to Afghanistan well before it was intended to be public. In general, it's best not to put anything on Twitter, even in a direct message, that you wouldn't want to be printed on a billboard. In fact, that very thing happened in Monroe, Alabama, where a poorly worded tweet appeared on an LED billboard, prompting the news director of a local television affiliate to be suspended. The final of the four major forms of Twitter message is the retweet. It's maybe a little more obscure than the others, but I actually think it's really interesting and important. A retweet happens when you see a tweet that you think is so interesting that you want to share it with all of your followers. Many Twitter apps, including the basic web interface at twitter.com, have a retweet button under each tweet. When you click this, a copy of that tweet, along with the username of the original author, is published into your stream of tweets. Typically, though not always, a retweet is preceded by the capital letters RT, to distinguish it from an @reply, since like an @reply, it will show the original author's username preceded by the @ symbol. Twitter can seem quite chaotic. That's because it is. And that's why Twitter users came up with the convention of the hashtag. A hashtag is any word or phrase preceded by the number or #. Hashtags can't contain any spaces, even if there's more than one word. Twitter users use hashtags as a way of broadcasting a message to other people interested in a topic, or finding out what other Twitter users are saying or thinking about a particular topic. Hashtags can be used to identify messages associated with a particular cause, for example, like this one, which supports the It Gets Better anti-bullying campaign. Or they can be used to communicate with other people who are at the same live event, like this message aimed at attendees of the online humor conference RaffleCon, or to other people in the geographic area, like this Montreal message. You'll notice that each hashtag pictured here is blue in color, just like a link. That's because it is a link. Clicking on it will show you a reverse chronological list of all the tweets with that hashtag. Hashtags are even used to create ad hoc live discussions on Twitter, where users log on to Twitter at a prearranged time and use the hashtag to denote messages that are part of the group discussion. This tweet is from a weekly live Twitter chat called NP Talk, where nonprofits get together to share tips about digital strategy, social media, things like that. NP Talk is great, and it happens every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Now, one common way to save space in your tweets is by use of a URL shortener. When you have only 140 characters, a URL for a web page can take up a lot of space. Services like Google Maps and e-commerce sites like Amazon sometimes use URLs with location or inventory identifiers that mean that the URL itself is longer than 140 characters. When you use a URL shortener like Bitly, you paste the URL you want to use into your tweet, and the service gives you back another, shorter URL that redirects to the original web page you want to send people to. Now, one of the first things you're going to want to do with your Twitter account, if you haven't already, is spruce up your Twitter profile. In particular, if you haven't uploaded a profile photo, either your face or your organization's logo, each one of your tweets will be accompanied by the default Twitter logo, which is an egg. Users whose tweets show the egg are sometimes considered to be new, unsophisticated, or maybe even fake accounts. So you'll want to upload an appropriate photo right away, as well as filling out all the other information in your profile, including you or your organization's name, URL, and tagline. You can also change the background of your Twitter profile if you wish. On an organization's profile, you'll be able to see the organization's logo, their URL, and you'll also be able to see how many people follow them and how many Twitter users they follow. Clicking on the followers link will give you an individual listing of all the people who follow this account. Doing this can be a really good way to find people you should follow. Look at individuals or organizations who share your interests, and browsing their follower list to find people whose tweets may prove interesting or valuable to you. Another great thing to do with your profile, particularly if you're tweeting on behalf of an organization rather than as an individual, is to note in your profile who these tweets are being authored by. Organizations on Twitter tend to do better when there's a human face for the organization. Now, this is the Twitter profile of the Boston Foundation, one of the country's largest community foundations, and it has a number of interesting features. Note how often the people managing the foundation's Twitter feed reply to people who are interested in what they have to say, how often they retweet the work of other nonprofits, news stories, or tweets by individuals. It shows real effective engagement. And I love how all their recent pictures are charts and graphs showing important statistics about the health of the community which they've shared on Twitter.